Oda may not draw Gear 4 anymore. Okay, listen to me. Look here, listen. Right now, Luffy's like busted in Gear 5. And mind you, there's so much more to come with Luffy. What we've seen so far is like the tippy top of the iceberg. And Lucci got folded like an accordion. And it sounded really wonky, but that's Luffy. And Luffy, at this point in time, is kind of showing us that he may rather want to be in Gear 5 rather than, let's say, Gear 4 or Gear 3 or Gear 2. Now, it could be because the form is new, so Oda wants to kind of like expand upon it more, but Luffy is at his freest when he's in this form. And like that kind of like hypes him up. Like, yeah, like it actually fits his character the most out of any other form, Gear 5. But then, wait, Gear 4? I did a tweet about this a few days ago, and there was a lot of comments, yo. A lot of comments. So if you don't know, you can find me on Twitter, link in the box below. And some cats were trolling, maybe not trolling actually, because it could be the case here where Gear 4 could be similar to even further beyond Super Saiyan 3 in Dragon Ball, where no one touches that. Everyone wants to go into Super Saiyan Red or Super Saiyan Blue, and Super Saiyan 3 is just worthless. Like, it's there and it's powerful, but who really cares? Gear 4, it's there and it's powerful, but now at this point in time, who really cares? So let me give you some step-by-step takes here. Cases for Gear 4, why Oda should keep Gear 4, and then cases where Oda should get rid of Gear 4 and focus predominantly on Gear 5. And then I'm gonna end the video off on what I think is gonna be like the best solution moving forward so everyone can be happy. So first things first, the case for keeping Gear 4. We could be right now with Gear 4 in a similar spot to where Gear 3 and Gear 2 were after the time skip, where they have gone through some major evolutions. Now, to this day, I'm not going to forget that Toei botched it, and when Monkey D's is when Gear 2 against Specifista, that was just for his arm, but Toei did for his whole body. Yes, I know. Oh my god, oh, forgave him. Cool. But it is a bit annoying nonetheless, because that was a clear sign of so much improvement in Luffy's abilities over that 2-year time skip. And we get that during the Kaido fight with Gear 4 itself, where in chapter 1042, this man Luffy in that chapter goes from Snake Man to Bound Man without the need of powering down, without the need of deflating the muscle balloon. Matter of fact, now that probably proves that Luffy no longer needs to bite and blow into his arm to activate his Gear 4 state. Just how you can argue the need for air in his Gear 3 transformation was getting phased out since Act 1, the beginning of Wano Country, when he fought against Urashima when he did the sumo slap. Not the big one, but the small one. The small version, we saw this man's arm expand without the need of air. And folks know, this was something that I harped on a lot for years, and it paid off in a big way. Again, a key sign here that Luffy, his different powers were evolving over the course of time. So Gear 4 has improved, and Oda not revisiting that at all seems a bit off. That's the first thing. Second thing is that Gear 5 does have drawbacks too, though right now I'd argue seemingly only after he uses his giant form, his Gigant form, because we see at the end of chapter 1050, where after the Bajran gun, he does not turn old or deflate as some folks theorize. And also, low-key, Luffy, his mindset in Gear 5, he messes around way too much. He's a kid in class with massive ADHD, and he just can't sit still, yo. He just can't focus. Yes. And that's why in chapter 1047, Kaido had to literally take the paddle. He had to beat it into Luffy. Stop messing around. Use some haki, okay? Goldie Roger was able to conquer the seas with haki and haki alone. What are you doing? Use your haki, son. So, Luffy has, you can argue, two drawbacks. One obvious, another one maybe not so obvious. After this, number 3, is that Gear 4 is very specialized when it comes to its forms. Snake Man for speed, Bound Man for raw power, and of course on occasions Tank Man for super defense here. So being super focused on, let's say, one main aspect of fighting can be very useful in certain situational fights or events that Luffy will have to deal with in the future, of course. And finally, number 4 for Gear 4, the aesthetic appeal. Why would Oda want to forego the Gear 4 states when I think the fandom is used to these forms in so many ways for so many years? The forms are aesthetically, I think, pretty damn dope forms. I believe that most folks, including Oda, would agree with that. Even though the forms do have their goofiness, the forms are also designed to have a degree of intensity that you don't necessarily get from Gear 5. Tank Man is way more goofy because he's just way too big, he's way too massive. But when he's in Gear 5, even though the form looks cool, he's zany. He's just he is just all over the place, yo. So would Oda want to have, let's say, a lot of high tension moments be kind of interrupted with the zany, the wonky, the madness that is Gear 5 all the time? Huh? Because so far, that's how things always start with Luffy in Gear 5. It's like Pegasus from Yu-Gi-Oh! Slapping down Toon World on round 1. That's Gear 5. Like, if there comes a point in time in the future where a Kainu, right? If he drills a hole through, let's say, Dragon or Ivankov, and then Luffy does the pop-out eyes. Hey, wait, hold on. Hey, hold up. Hey, wait a minute. I don't know. This might not be the right play. Okay, so that is, I think, the case for Gear 4 that I can gander so far. Why we should keep Gear 4. Now, the case against Gear 4 and the case for Gear 5. The first one is obvious here. The foundation of Gear 4 is haki. And of course, you can overutilize too much of your haki. Luffy has that, so does Zoro, where in certain forms and states, it's dangerous to expend too much of one's haki. And in Luffy's case, he has, of course, that 10-minute risk. So why bother using Gear 5 when it comes with that innate risk? And because haki is an outside power source from its own different abilities, it's very likely that that risk still applies. Let's say maybe shorter, so a 5-minute risk, or let's say a 2-minute risk, but it's still a risk nonetheless. And then this brings up point number 2 for getting rid of Gear 4, where even though Gear 5 does have drawbacks, the main one being him like deflating and so on, we see in chapter 1045 him actually push through and muscle through those drawbacks. He can't do that for Gear 4. Once he runs out of haki, he has to wait a certain amount of time to regain said haki. But in Gear 5, we know, okay, I'm deflated or I'm turning old, doesn't matter. My heart beat faster, get that drum going, and he will push through that drawback. That is a major upside when it comes to the drawbacks of Gear 4 versus Gear 5. The Gear 5 one is just better. Number 3 for phasing out Gear 4 would be low-key Luffy in base form, his Gear 2 and Gear 3, busted. Powerful. Very powerful forms as they are. This man in base plus Gear 2 and Gear 3. So I kind of now wrap up Gear 2 and Gear 3 in his base forms because Luffy in Gear 2 seems to just utilize Gear 2 for certain parts of his body, like his arms or his legs, and then the full-on Gear 2 stance now activates Gear 5. But that being said, we saw Luffy fought against Kaido in hybrid form 1v1 in chapter 1037, and Luffy the entire time in that chapter was in base form. And over the course of time, Luffy's haki will improve, his natural stats will improve, and there's no need to worry about a haki expenditure drawback. Again, once again, it kind of feels like the whole Goku Super Saiyan 3 thing, where Goku will go into Super Saiyan 2, and then jump right into God mode. The fourth thing for phasing out Gear 4, very obvious here. Gear 5 has so much more to offer. It is insane. There are so many things in Luffy's bag right now that we can't even comprehend yet. The flaming aura around Luffy's whole body in chapter 1049 when he beats Kaido with that last swing of the Bajran gun. Goggles! Goggles in the last chapter. What the f is going on? It's just the tip, baby. Yeah, it's just the tippy top of the iceberg, yo. So why waste time with Gear 4? Who cares? There are other things that are better and have less severe drawbacks. And then, stylistically, even though Luffy does mess around a lot in Gear 5, of course, that's Oda's choice to have Luffy mess around with his willy out against Kaido at the very beginning of that first reveal of Gear 5 and against Rob Lucci. So the case can be made here that against stronger foes in general or in much more intense situations, Oda will just not have Luffy mess around despite going into Gear 5, where he'll take it off the gate more seriously. And again, we kind of see that against Kaido as the fight continued to progress. At first, zany madness, but as the fight progressed, he did take the fight a lot more serious. And you could see in his facial expressions, the intensity of the shading and so on and so forth here. So Oda could easily have it to where he is dead serious off the rip, despite him being Gear 5. So, that all being said, the case for and against Gear 4. Now, what is the best solution? I did see a few folks bring this up in my Twitter replies to that tweet that I made a few days ago. And some of this is in lockstep with the idea that Luffy's Gear 4 forms are actually some hybrid form variation. Though, to me, it always kind of felt a little bit weird because when we see Zoans going through their hybrid forms, they do so naturally. Whereas with Luffy, if the Gear 4 was a hybrid form, why is it predicated on an outside ability? Haki. Every Gear 4 form is predicated on Haki. So can you really call that a hybrid form? That seems a bit off. But it's also the key thing here. Since the Gear 4 forms are predicated on Haki, why not have the Gear 4 forms blend in with Gear 5? It is a dope idea. Amazing! That I got from the comments, the Twitter replies on that tweet, where instead of, let's say, having a Gear 4 Bowman, have a Gear 5 Bowman. Instead of a Gear 4 Snake Man, have a Gear 5 Snake Man. Have a Gear 5 Tank Man. I think that could definitely work because by default, there would be more powerful versions of his Gear 4 forms in the past, 1. 2, from a design perspective, it would be pretty damn dope to have that mix and match of the black and white, like Oreo Cinnabons. Delicious. That mix of yin and yang in this sort of crazy Gear 5 Bound Man form. Yes! Yeah! Yo, that's kind of raw. Like when I envision it, it's kind of nasty. There is that risk of, let's say, like double drawbacks, because of course his Haki could run out and he turns old. However, again, if those Gear 5 drawbacks are only predicated on him going into giant form, then that wouldn't be an issue when he's in Gear 5 Bound Man or Gear 5 Snake Man. So I think overall that's a nice middle ground between the Gear 4 and Gear 5 situation if Oda has any intention of actually phasing out Gear 4 from Luffy's power lexicon, and it would actually be more powerful than his Gear 4 versions. The risks are arguably greater, but the power results? That power, ladies and gentlemen, is studly. Astronomically studly.